Alrighty. Thank you, the few of you who are tuning in from afar, and everybody who is present here. Again, thank you for coming. Really appreciate that. We just wanted to open this up, Gernot and I, just for some general questions about the Private Lessons Center, how private lessons are running this season, just general procedures and policies, and answering any questions that you guys may have. So we will start with the questions that people turned in advance. The first of which is, what is the deal with First Tracks? So this season, First Tracks has gone away as a separate standalone product for ski school. It is now only for add-on to half-day or full-day privates. That is half-day morning privates, not PM. This was for a couple of reasons. Mostly it has to do with, unfortunately, some people ruining it for the many, where we had people paying for, 2 or 3 people to go out on a First Tracks and ending up taking out groups of 8 or 9 at a time without paying for it, just because they all knew the instructor. So that is very unfortunate. The other part of this is technically from 8 to 9 o'clock, you are not on the clock. And so if you were to take that out as a separate product and you don't currently offer it, if anything happened and you were injured for whatever reason up on the mountain, you wouldn't be covered under workman's comp, and it's something we just can't do, having you out there with the guests when you are technically not being paid. So that one hopefully is fairly simple and clear. First Tracks do still exist. It's just add-on only. So definitely still a product you can sell if you want to have your guest up on the mountain at 8 o'clock, ask them to book an AM private or a full day private, and then just tack that on. Second question is, what resorts can we do for privates, like taking our guests to, aside from Winter Park? And right now, the only one that we can do that with is Steamboat, and that is on a case-by-case basis, so it has to be approved by Tony, and then it also has to be approved by the Steamboat Ski and Ride School director. So if you have guests who are looking to go to Steamboat, this is stuff that we want to know well in advance, like as far in advance as possible, just so we can give Tony time to handle that and for him to reach out to Steamboat and make sure that that is being taken care of.
Is that booked through our PLC?
Yep, so it's booked normally through us, and you don't need to like flake in here or anything. What we'll do is we'll just manually enter in the information. You don't take a flake with you. And just for clarification, anyone wondering, unfortunately, your drive to Steamboat is not on the clock, just as your drive to work here is not on the clock. So that is your own time, your choice to do that with your guest. Third question is from Mr. Brian Tripp. He was wondering about if we can start looking at moving rentals and just kind of the whole operation more over to this side of the world, closer to West Portal, away from the village area, just because of the long walk and just all the difficulties it is getting guests from point A to point B and getting confused about where to go. This season, unfortunately, it is not likely to happen, just because that is more of a longer term plan, but we are aware of that, and it is something that we are looking into. So without guaranteeing anything, what we can say is in the future, we are looking to move things all into one central area, which will be located over here. We're close to the rental shop, we're close to the Gemini, we're close to Sorensen Park, where most of our private lessons are starting now. So it absolutely does make sense. That is something that we want to do. It's just not in the cards right now for this season. But hopefully, looking forward in the next season or two, we will see that change happening.
I think Bixby can add something to it.
Yeah, for those guests that we see, especially right now, while the village is closed during weekdays, we're trying to have you guys meet them over at West Portal if we see that they have rentals over there. And we'll just text you that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Keep an eye on your phone.
All right.
We use the same Zingle that SRS admin uses to text you guys, so we'll start harassing you more and more.
That's fine. I haven't been over there in a bit. Does it, from people that have or been over there, has the Willie Cat been running a little more regularly now that we're in it?
Yes,
Okay.
so the Willie Cat is running regularly on schedule.
Because that makes it a little more convenient, but even that step is a little bit clunky and a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and actually that is something I wanted to address for people talking about the Willie Cat. I know there has been some frustration where it feels like they're not running on a certain schedule, but they are absolutely making those 15-minute loops. Generally what happens is if you get there, they may just be pulling away and it's going to be a full 15 minutes before they come back. There is absolutely nothing we can do about that. It is a set loop, but they are running on time. Yes?
Because this caught me off guard yesterday. If we one of the Willie cabs now says Club Rendezvous.
Says what?
Club Rendezvous.
Club Rendezvous.
It's
Okay.
like the one they're using for the Willie cab.
The Willie cab.
Gotcha.
Ah.
Okay, that's interesting. I
And
didn't
so
know
I
that.
let it go the first time because I was like, hey, Rendezvous has a shovel.
Yeah, so that is a great point for those of you listening at home. The comment was one of the Willie Cap shuttles now says Club Rendezvous. That is actually the Willie Cap shuttle. You can take that. It's not going to take you to Rendezvous. It's an advertisement or a sponsorship or something.
Or
So
just
that
the
is definitely a
van
good
they're
thing.
using.
Thank you. Yes.
So it's making these 15-minute laps. We are really busy, like over Christmas.
Yes.
There will be enough private lessons there that they will fill that thing 5 times in a row. And if we wait, it's going to be an hour and 20 minutes before we get there.
Yeah.
So during Christmas time, we got to work something better than waiting for the next one 15 more minutes from now.
For sure.
Any
So
ideas?
the comment was during the busy time, during Christmas week in particular, our privates may be exceeding the capacity of the Willie Cab several times over, and that's a challenge. 100% that is something that we are going to have to be dealing with. We can reach out to talk to them about potentially running an extra shuttle, but I have a feeling that because they're so short-staffed, that may not be in the cards. So what we can do is unfortunately offer and say, hey, got a little bit of a choice here. We can wait for the shuttle if you are absolutely pooped. But understand it's about a 5-minute walk to the Gemini if the guests are capable of doing that. The other thing that we can do is, if you're interested, we can try to grab a handful of carts, sleds, wagons, things like that, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to transport your equipment over there. This is an excellent point.
They do generally run more shuttles during the holidays, so if they have the staff to do it.
Cool.
At one point, we were talking about getting our own bus driver doing it for like an hour in the morning or whatever.
Yeah, and we might, if they don't, if that's the reason, that doesn't require a CDL, so anybody with a driver's license and a good driving record can drive.
Fair. So if anyone wants to drive the Willie Cab, let us know.
Oh, I'll drive it.
Please
Yeah.
also remember that those guys, those employees are very good employees. They got to learn to speak too, and we have to get to know them and stuff. So please be patient. And we'll just try to do the best. It doesn't do us any good to yell at the guy and say, hey, what did you, whatever, where have you been? Were you on a lunch break or whatever? So it's just, be polite. They're trying, and, if there's anything that's going on, then let us know. And then, but we need to know the time, the driver's name, and so we can follow up on that and not just saying, oh, the Willie Cab is not doing anything.
Yeah,
Right?
and just for clarity, there were some issues at the very beginning of the season where things were a little bit rough. We did actually reach out to Scott Ingles about that, and he came back and said, hey, I understand, there's some new drivers in there, but at this point, they're 100% on board. They know what they're expected to do. So those issues hopefully should be happening again.
I was just wondering if the 5-year-old is projected to remain on PLC for indefinitely, or?
That's a great question. I'll take a stab at it. Feel free to interject. Yeah, sorry. The question is the 3 to 5-year-old program going to stay in privates only, or will we bring back the Tiny Talk group lessons? My guess is right now we're probably going to keep it in privates because it is such a popular product. It's better for our instructors. It's better for the kids. Everybody generally seems to be happy with that. So that's my personal thought. Tony, feel free to jump in.
We do have plans to have a program, not in the same manner that we did the 3 and 4-year-olds previously. We were planning on running it this year. However, with the coronavirus going the way that it was, we just decided it wasn't a good idea because it's mostly, there's going to be a lot of indoor time and kids can't get vaccinated and all of that. So we do have plans in the future to bring something back. It won't necessarily be exactly the same program that we have, but
keeping in mind that coronavirus is not going away.
Well, we're getting there.
Yeah, but that's not there.
We're getting there.
I think we can only.
I see what's going on here.
I got you. Hang on. So let's try to raise hands, Jack.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so Barb, correct me, I think your question was really more, do they need to see meetings at the PLC for those?
So it's
That's the pay.
It's an excellent question, and honestly, it's up to the guest. So a lot of the time, what's going to happen is they need to get rentals or equipment. They're already over in the village, then they're going to get their tickets from the PLC. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. But if you wanted to meet your guest over by Sorensen and you had one, you can let us know. We'll reach out to the guest, or we'll let you reach out to the guest and say, hey, we can meet at a different place if that works for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you see that on your flake, just shoot us a text.
So if you have more than one in the 3 to 5, if they put it that way, if somebody asks for it, if they have like a group of cousins that come in, they're all the same age, can they all do a private lesson?
Yeah.
So in the regular private lesson.
Just for the people at home, hang on. The question was, can 3 to 5-year-olds be more than one in a private lesson?
So in a regular private lesson, they can do that. The 3 to 5-year-old private lesson is significantly discounted. And the reason is because it's only one kid.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you could do a 7-person 3 to 5-year-old private if you wanted to, but they would pay for the extra 2 people for, and they would pay for a normal private lesson, not that tiny tot price.
And there's nothing to keeping them doing a coach each anyway. So you could combine the group.
If you had, the question is, could you combine groups? Yes. So if 2 parents each signed up their 2 kids for 2 tiny tot lessons and they said, we want them to go together. Of course, absolutely. That's up to the parents. That's the private guest. They can do what they want. Yes. Yes.
This is kind of a general question, maybe even above like the management of the ski and ride school with guest services, and maybe, I don't know if it's Sky or Tom or whoever, but as a whole, even our department and like management above everybody's head in here, does this resort, and this is the part, well, I bet the department does, but does this resort consider private lessons a better, more premium product, or just a more expensive product?
My takeaway, and again, feel free to contradict me here, is you are paying for a one-on-one lesson with a coach. You are paying for more direct coaching without the group setting. You don't have to deal with other people that you don't know. The premium aspect of the product is that one-on-one time. And so I think what you're asking is like, do you automatically get our top certed, top ranked instructor, right?
No.
Can you clarify a little bit more?
So, well, just in general, private sounds more expensive anyway. It's on wine bottles, it's on chocolate, whatever. So when someone buys something that says private anything on it, it usually indicates, one, that it's more expensive, and hopefully that it's better. That's what I'm wondering. Does the resort as a whole see that as, hey, if someone spends this much money on a private lesson, because it's for up to 5 people, right, before we add on. So when it says private lesson, regardless of how many people they put in it, they're, in my mind, the guest is probably expecting something better than group description.
Okay.
So does the resort as a whole look at it as like, hey, this person's buying a private lesson, let's find the best possible option. Doesn't necessarily mean certain, but like the best fit, the most qualified, the most experienced, whatever that may be, to facilitate this private lesson these people have bought.
Sure. So the question was, for anyone who didn't hear from home, how premium is a private lesson? Is it something the resort views as a whole as supposed to be a top product, or is it just the one-on-one? So I can't speak for the whole resort. I can speak a little bit for the private lesson center, and Tony, definitely feel free to contradict me. But where we are at right now, when we have guests who are looking to book something very specific in private lessons, and they say, I want to work on X, Y, Z, I want to work on edging, I want to work on rotary, I want to be able to do this or that, we are absolutely going to be picking a coach who's going to be able to deliver that to them at a high level.
Sure.
What we are seeing a lot of right now is, I want to go skiing with my family, I want to stand up, I want to be safe, I want to have fun, and I want to take pictures. That's all that they are looking for. It's actually, for a lot of people right now, almost they're looking for a guide. They're looking for someone to show them what this is about, to kind of hold their hand, walk them through the process. And for those people, yes, it's a premium product, but for them, it's actually a cost-saving product, because if they were each to put them in group lessons, the cost would actually be higher. Right. So they're actually saving money by doing this. They're getting their whole family together, and they're going out to have a good time.
Sure.
So I would say it's a little bit of a mix of both, where yes, we still have that premium product where we're going to send somebody out with one of our most proficient, technically savvy, experienced instructors who can give them exactly what they're looking for. Yes, there's definitely room for that. But a large majority of those lessons now are just these, I'm here to explore it. I'm here to experience it. Sorry.
We're looking for a great experience for the family.
Yep.
Exactly.
And they want to do it
And they
together.
wanna come
Yeah.
back together.
Sure.
Yes. And so a lot of that is actually, who are you as a person? What are you, how are you customer facing? Are you fun? Are you exciting? Or is the customer looking for somebody who is patient and, you know, not going to get upset when they don't get it the first time? So that doesn't always necessarily require a very high level of skiing. And so that's why our new hires can come in on some of these family privates and they can do just as good of a job as someone who's been doing this a little bit longer. So Tony, or not, feel free to step in here. That's, you know, that's where I'm at with it.
You know, I mean, guest services, and you know, when we get private lessons booking in, they come from a website for the most site Intopia.
Yeah.
And for about 90%, and correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, if the three of us could stand a little bit closer, that would.
There is no comment in there. They don't have any expectation, or they didn't see it or whatever. They didn't give us any comment. So what happens then is the agents have to call back and find out what are their expectations, what do they want to accomplish. And you would be surprised how long it takes to get in touch with people and find out that information.
Some people will call them and text them multiple times, weeks out, and they just ignore us. They don't care. They just want somebody, whoever we give them.
But can we exceed that?
I mean,
We
there's a
can.
point where it becomes harassment if we just keep trying to
No, I'm
push
not
them and
talking about
push
that.
them.
So they just want somebody. Can't we just give them better than just somebody?
So can I put you on the spot a little bit, Trip?
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we have 50 family privates going out a day
Mm-hmm.
for 10 weeks straight,
Okay.
do you want to teach those every single day?
Why not? It's my career.
So,
It's a
but
lucrative part of our job.
it's awesome if you think that way, but right now we have a lot of people who don't really want to do those every day, or they're not capable of doing it every day. And that's where we're not giving them a worse product, but we're giving them what they want. And I think that
Right.
Net Promoter Score is going to kind of show us that. And so far, even from these family privates where we've sent out a couple of either first season or second season instructors, we've been getting very positive scores for most of these things. And I'm not saying that there's not room for improvement.
Right.
And when we see things that we don't like on the private side, where it's a matter of safety, or we see the guest is not enjoying it,
Right.
that's something we're absolutely going to be addressing. So we're hoping that these things are, if we do have instances where I think the concern is we're putting out a lesser product. Is that right?
I think it's possible that maybe a lesser product. I can't observe what's going on
Mhm.
out there. But the key thing that would concern me the most is when you said, we can put a new hire on this and they're going to do just as good a job as someone else. It's a pretty broad brush.
So
And it's a blank.
it is a blanket statement, yes.
statement.
So what I would say is,
So-
if we're putting out somebody who is brand new, fresh, they just finished training, I cannot compare that to a Chris McKerney, to a Brian Tripp, to people who have been doing this for a long time. But what I do think is that we absolutely should be giving these instructors the chance to say, hey, I can put out a product that's going to satisfy the guests. They will be happy. If we come back and that lesson with a new hire is nothing but 10, amazing, the instructor gave me exactly what I wanted.
I get that, but there's still the chance that that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
the chances we are taking, you're absolutely right, but we also are watching guest comments.
Right.
And, you
Understand.
know, and if we see something that's not right to us and the guest is complaining or said
Sure.
wasn't really great, then we have to go back and see what was it that did not work. And then we have to,
Right. I understand
Go
there's a
different.
balance with that.
you know,
But for a long time, and we've never really had a clinic on how to approach a private lesson, how to talk to people that are paying for private. Not all of them are going to be 5 people. We might have one that's one-on-one or well, 2-on-1 or whatever. And
Yeah.
I guess most likely you're not going to put a new hire inexperienced person on
No.
that one. But, rather than have the chance of that person going over there, can we have some sort of like clinic? Hey, this is kind of, even though these people got 5 or 7 people in here, this is how we would like our instructors to speak to our guests, to take care of our guests, more concierge level of service, even if they are just here, just wanting a family experience. Can we just go above and beyond?
Yeah.
What
Step in for a second here now?
Sorry, yeah.
So, first of all of our guests are very important.
Right.
So we're not going to put all of our best coaches.
I understand that.
All of the time.
I understand.
Right? So there has to be a balance there, and frankly, our group lessons are more profitable than our private lessons because we have groups of people. So that's one thing. The second thing is our supervisors are watching and looking for feedback from all of our staff. And so we do have new hires that perform very, very well in their very first season.
I believe.
And you guys might not see that.
Right.
But frankly, some of our new hires outperform people that have been here for a long period of time and
That's
have
possible.
certifications.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not always cut and dry. And it also depends on the private lesson. You know, we have some level 3 instructors that don't do very well with 3-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
So we're not going to put them with a 3-year-old when we have a new hire that's going to be a better fit for them, even if it's a half day or whatever. So we're trying really hard to balance that. And as Gernot said, we're watching guest feedback. We watch every day that what they do. So we try our very best. And when we get really busy, of course, we get spread thin, and sometimes things don't work out. But we've also had lessons with highly experienced instructors that have been in privates that the guests were unsatisfied, right? So we just have to, it's a balancing act. For sure.
Well, I think it helps with the confidence. I'm speaking for myself, and maybe for other people too, that
We get to hear that now. We haven't really had this discussion before.
Mhm.
So everybody's kind of got their own perception of like, oh, this is happening, or we don't know. So this part to me helps a little bit with just clarifying some perception that they've been cloudy.
And in addition also is that, you know, we have kid side, adult side, private lesson. How many coaches do we total have that can teach still from the top level all the way down to first time skiers?
Probably not many.
Not many. Then
Spanning all
we
ages,
have to consider that we cover all levels
Right.
on the kids, on the adults, and of course then in privates. So it's a puzzle, and you know, it's insanely, when we are not busy, it's not a big deal, but when we get busy, it's insanely difficult to have all the appropriate coaches in the right place.
Yep.
That there's so many variances, which you don't need to know, but that's part of what we're looking at too.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit more clarity, you know, with the concern of like making sure we're putting the right people on the right lessons, trying to give the guest that full experience, we are actually doing data-driven work. Right now, we've already started based on our observations, where I'm reaching out to the kid supervisors, the adult supervisors, snowboard supervisors, and saying, especially, you know, this is focused on the new hires in particular, and even first season returning instructors. When you're out there for supervisors observing these lessons, gather some data, come back, bring it to the private lesson center and say, hey, this person is doing an outstanding job. I'm watching their ability to manage their class, to manage difficulties with it, to make sure the guest is having a good experience. And those standout employees are going to be finding themselves pulled over to the private lesson center more often. And on the flip side, when we see things that we think have room for improvement, or is maybe not the most guest-centered way that we're doing things, we're pulling those instructors aside and saying, hey, you know, we've seen a couple things we'd like you to work on. For, you know, a week or so, we're going to make you not available for privates. We'd either like you to attend training, or we're just going to observe what you're doing. So we're trying to be very transparent with all this. We're trying to give everybody an equal opportunity, but it is data-driven. It's not just today this person goes out there and we'll hope for the best.
Yeah.
So I definitely do appreciate that question, and it is something we're going to be keeping an eye on. And to be honest, like especially from the more experienced instructors who've been around here for a while, you know, there's only a handful of supervisors, and if you really see something where you're like, wow, this is a big safety concern, or they're teaching their student to stand on the uphill ski, you know, something like that, like you can bring that to our attention, and that's data, that's information that we want, and that's a coaching experience for that instructor. So, you know, if you see that, maybe don't jump into their lesson unless it's like a safety thing. Be like, hey man, don't do that thing. But bring it to us, and we will be taking that data into consideration. Absolutely. Yes.
So different topic. And Richard, we've talked about this before, but with first tracks, A lot of the younger instructors, we use first tracks, at least in the past, to start building that client book. I know I have a few clients that local, they come up for the weekend, they want to get on the hill an hour early, powder, no powder, whatever. They like that extra hour. And they could also use the tune-up lesson. Are we looking at grandfathering any of those old clients in? Are we considering ever bringing those back? Because I know I'll lose at least 2 clients from not having that. I don't think I could ever, without getting them on the hill a little more, sell them a half day. And that's just client discount. Okay. And that sucks for us younger guys who I have like maybe 3 or 4 private clients that come back. And that makes it kind of hard just getting the ball rolling. Okay. Is that ever, and maybe this is more for Tony and Gernot a little bit, is that ever something we consider? Or maybe the odd case?
So repeat the question. Yeah. For everyone at home, the question was back to First Tracks. Are we ever looking at bringing that program back? Will we grandfather some of our regular customers who always signed up for these programs? And just generally, how are we looking at that going forward?
So I'll answer the grandfather question first. We won't grandfather people because we haven't built the product. It's the whole process. It's not online. It's not available for purchase at the moment. So one of the reasons we got rid of First Tracks is there were 2 departments doing First Tracks, right? There's guides doing First Tracks and there's ski and ride doing First Tracks. And then we look at how they perform financially for us. And the last full season that we had without COVID or anything, it was less than $60,000 of revenue on $7.5 million. So we got rid of childcare because that was an underperforming product for us. And we don't want to split the revenue between 2 departments basically and fight over those pieces of those opportunities. So we probably won't bring them back. And then the other thing about it is if you have clients that are doing First Tracks, we probably will bring back other things that are similar at some point. You know, we used to do bump jamborees and things like that are more high level. It's not 8 a.m. kind of stuff, but certainly you could go, you could do those kinds of things. We're not doing them this year because we're having staffing challenges and we don't want to put more work for everybody on the weekend when we already have a lot of work. But yeah, I mean, it's not an easy decision to make, but when we have 2 departments doing the same thing, it didn't make a lot of sense to us. And we're trying to differentiate lessons from guiding as well, right? There are definitely some First Tracks. I've had them. I can name some clients that have no intention whatsoever of having any lesson. They just want to go ski with me at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that is a guide problem. Right. So
to follow up there,
yeah,
you hand us a different colored jacket.
And you can work for guides.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can work for guides and you can,
You can't teach.
But you can't
teach.
Like,
why can't teach?
Yeah, why can't we just take another jacket and do that for an hour in the morning?
It's a different price point, just so you know. Guides is $114 per person per hour.
Okay.
We were doing this for 160 something for 3 people for an hour and a quarter or something. And also,
And they could get the
that's
discounted
good.
lift tickets and
When the lifts open at 8:30, if you know your gas, can you start at 8:30?
Chris and I were just talking about that. We would rather you purchase the First Tracks if you want to do a First Tracks. There is an add-on. It's pretty inexpensive if you've already got it.
I mean, if they bought a 3-hour private and
Yeah.
it's a weekend, if they start at 8:30 when the lifts open, sorry.
No, we want you to start on time. So Chris and I already had this conversation.
Okay.
So if your lesson goes, if you're being paid from 9:15 until 3:15 or 3:30 or whatever it is, that's when you're on the clock.
Okay.
If you start
So,
at 8:30.
so it has to do with the liability.
Right.
Your guest could go and ski at 8:30 when the lift's open.
Okay, but you can't start the lesson there and just go until like 11:30. Okay.
If you wanted to
All right.
ski in your own jacket
All right.
30 minutes before and then switch jackets for your private,
Okay.
that could happen.
All right.
And then
So we have to stick to those timelines, even for the private lessons, no matter if it's a weekend or whenever. Okay.
And just to address the last part of Jack's concern of building private clientele. First Tracks was amazing. There are absolutely other opportunities for you to do it. So this there will absolutely be other opportunities. There's always ways for you to sell privates, and we definitely encourage you to attend those trainings.
But we see how there's a missing piece where there's an easy, like, I don't need to commit to $500, 4 hours with this guy.
Kind of like
Let's-
our rolling upgrades.
Yeah, let's give a 1 hour test run.
Roll
with
the
this.
afternoon.
Yeah. What I would
A
say
1 hour test
is
run.
be creative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you teach a lot of group lessons, you'll find that you have a lot of people or a lot of groups of people
Right,
that
of course.
know each other. So you go, okay, there's 3 or 4 of you, do the math.
Cheaper. this
Right,
way.
for a little bit extra, you can book me and request me for a private. And I think that's what Richard's talking about. He has a lot of success doing that, right? Multi-week kids, all that stuff, all those kids that are here every Saturday. If you go, hey, man, if you guys, the 4 of you want to do it, especially now with the advent of
Sure.
Venmo and things like that, people that don't know each other, that know they ski well together and are friends with each other, can book a private team.
And it's cheaper for them to do it that way.
Correct, yeah. So those are
Especially
the
if
kind of
it's
tools that
kids,
we'd
yeah.
rather give you guys so that you can make that stuff happen.
I think there's still that missing, like the softest, like a 1 hour thing. That's just not, that's the thing that's missing.
The intimacy.
Yeah, where it's like, I don't know who you are. I don't want to necessarily drop a bunch of money, even if it's split apart on a 4 hour lesson. I don't, I met a bunch of clients at the chairlift last year, just free skiing. Like, oh yeah, we do First Tracks. You want to do that? Signed up the next day. I made close to $1,000 off this one family last year through tips and First Tracks. I think they came like maybe 6 times.
Should encourage them to take a private lesson with you.
Oh, those guys all turn into a private lesson, that's fine. But like for the average person that I'm just meeting on a chairlift, they don't know me, why not go with Tripp? Why not go with McKerney? I need to get that.
Yeah,
ball
and I
rolling.
think that's why we're suggesting that you do it within the
Right.
scope of your other lessons so that they
But we're
do
missing
know and they
that.
know what you're capable of
Yeah.
and they go, yeah, I want
But we're missing that, like, I just need them on the hill or in town or something. Group lessons, that's an easy sell. That's what that's easy. It's that the random person, like, hey, let's do a 1 hour, like a tune-up lesson.
Yeah, I mean,
Products.
those are, the more products we have that are short in duration and cheap, that's going to be what all of our clients want.
Yeah.
It's going to be the first thing that they do. They often look for the cheapest thing, and that's not what we're not trying to market to those people for private lessons, essentially.
Well, the only window is kind of in the morning anyway. Yes.
Yes.
Other than the obvious differentiation of beginners versus maybe more advanced skiers as the clients, help me as my ignorance understand the differentiation between private and guide. That
The guide doesn't teach at all. The
Sorry.
guide is literally taking.
Question was, what's the difference between a private lesson and a guide program, basically?
A guide is basically just that, a guide. They're going to ask you what kinds of runs do you like to ski, and they're going to take you to wherever you like to ski, and they're going to show you around the mountain.
it's more geared towards a more advanced skier rather than, okay.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah.
And sometimes
So
they,
that's the differentiation.
right, sometimes it's not necessarily an advanced skier, sometimes they're, hard green, blue skiers, but they don't know the mountain and they don't know where to go, where it's not going to be busy, right, or things like that.
They don't teach at all.
They don't teach at all.
No.
Yeah. I think
They all have like different profiles. It's to like this guy's rumors. So you just, themselves, the guides do.
We had some guided things. It was very similarly priced to ski school. So it's differentiated basically in marketing, right? Where they're like, if somebody doesn't necessarily, because there is sometimes in some people's mind a negative connotation to going to ski school, right? I don't need a lesson.
That's what they do in copper.
Right. And so I just want to go with someone to show me around because I've never been to Winter Park. Right. So it's more of a marketing thing. It's kind of like, I would say, similar to the comp center, right? There's a lot of comp center kids who are actually in competitions, but there's also a lot of comp center kids that are not in competition, right? There's the ATP program, all that stuff. It's more of a marketing thing than anything else. The local parents go, yeah, my kid's in the comp center, and it's essentially a multi-week program, but it's longer, right?
So ski
Brian.
school's claim to fame is really, you're a beginner, come to us. You can either do it in.
If you are,
family group,
what I would say is,
individual, or in-
I mean, certainly beginners are a huge part of our business, but people who are actively trying to get better at what they're doing, whether, it's skiing or snowboarding or moguls or whatever, they come to ski school, right? The comp center, in my mind, should be people that are geared towards competition at some point, right? If that's what they want to do, that's where they go to the comp center. And the guides are just for people who just want to be shown around, essentially.
So.
Hang on, let's, if we can raise our hands, because Brian's been
Well,
over a
it
bit.
has right to do with that, is that you need to make sure the guys aren't teaching, they are out there. Seen it happen.
Okay, well, let me know when it happens, because we've
Seen it
been
happen
pretty
twice
clear.
this year.
Okay, get names.
Okay, yeah.
Brian,
So whatever entity created the guides or is supporting the guides and is giving them these tools, especially the profile online, and I'm assuming they can book that person, right?
Mhm.
When do you guys anticipate that they are going to do the same thing for this big entity for private lessons with instructors?
It's a lot more complicated.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, we have, and so.
But they started
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. It would be great if we could do
I
that,
know it's
right?
not
I know
exactly.
Bixby would love it if you didn't have to ask all these
would
questions.
be
and
nice.
be like,
Right.
what kind of instructor do you want? If they could just choose their instructor.
Other
and
places
go-
have been doing it for
Right.
years. I know it's not your deal to go do it. but
Yeah, yeah.
Would be nice.
They're doing it
But-
for somebody.
Yeah, we would love to do it, and the problem that we have is their business is a lot more streamlined than ours. It's pretty small comparatively, right? We have a lot more stuff.
Are they operating at a loss, probably? The guide service.
The guides? I don't know.
It's a good question.
They're mostly
Yeah.
part-timers from my
I can look. I have a printout of the financials for everybody.
Well, anyway, regardless, the point is, and this is probably above you guys, because a lot of this stuff probably is whatever. They're willing to do it for that department, like right off the bat. And this entity has been here for a
Well,
while.
in fairness, they're using a platform that we can't use
Okay,
to book, right? So we would have to, if we wanted to use that platform, we could only use it for private lessons. You could book nothing else.
well, I think that's fine though, because people are more likely to want to do that for
But we
private
have
lessons.
so many guests that are booking other things, right?
Right.
With their lesson.
They're buying not just a private lesson, they're buying a group lesson for their kid, they're doing all these other. If it is robust enough at some point to do that, then we could potentially look into it. Flake apparently is trying to do
Okay.
a sales platform.
Correct.
So there are feelers out there. There's nothing at the moment that we've seen that would work for us.
Tracy, I think you had your hand up.
Well, I was just gonna say, today I've only had one, learn to turn, but his dad, he's good, he knows what he's doing, but he can't get the parallel and he wants to wedge instead of take the turn. He wants to take the east route. And he was like, well, I was thinking about putting him in comp center, and it's like, I don't know, we just kind of, next time I talk to him, and he goes, what about those multi-weeks? And I said, sign him up. I said, that's what you need, is the multi-week.
I don't them over there, get them in a group, get them the multi-week, right?
And that's what the multi-week is designed for, right? That's supposed to be a feeder program to those other competitions.
Okay, yeah, he will get there, I know he will, but he needs those 4 weeks of consecutive, and he'll go from 3 to 4, and he'll be ready for the lesson.
So the other thing is, I mean, that's even an opportunity to sell a private lesson right there, because you have Comp Center, which is you're throwing them into another big group. They're not going to get the same kind of attention as one-on-one. With us, we're certified. We've been through this a whole lot. If you want your kid to progress the most, technically it's going to be in that one-on-one. So you can kind of see these as opportunities as a way to sell yourself on more requests.
And it was today.
Yeah.
Jack.
To dive deeper into Chris's question. When the guy inevitably gets the how do I ski better question, which they will always get. I'm just gonna go out from there.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I would never use the word always.
Maybe not always.
Because I've taught people in lessons that.
Never ask a question, right. But when
just
they,
want to go
maybe not always, but every guide's probably gotten that question. I think that's probably fair to say. Are they expected to say, no, I can't teach you that, go to ski school, because that's providing an inferior product?
They are expected to say that I'm not. I mean, most of them are uncertified. They are untrained in teaching. So that is the expectation. And I know from the director of activities, she has been very clear with them that they are not teaching. But now, if
but if I'm a guy on the hill giving a guide or guiding, I'm not gonna not teach there, right? Because that's gonna be tip money out of my pocket. That's gonna be, maybe they don't come back.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Right? So
I think it's an.
Can you lead that charge?
I mean,
We've talked about.
Yeah,
I think
We all like that.
I think where we are is it's right now we're experimenting with the guy. We'll see how it goes. It's only been up for a couple of years right now.
Yeah, I think this is the third year of it.
But yeah, there's a lot of schools that the guide program runs through. And initially it ran for us, and we were asked to have it go through the guide program, and we said, okay.
But Steve, what's that? Steve, we have other icon.
Yeah, I think this is just to see if it would become a bigger product, right? I think it's what they're trying to do is find the market at the Jane that on the weekends doesn't do anything.
So what you're saying is it could potentially come in.
Yeah, it could. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but right now we're experimenting with guides to see how it goes.
Yeah.
And if you're out on the hill, I mean, so think of it, it's another department. We need to be careful with how we address this, but they have supervisors that are also out there checking on their guided, I won't say lessons because they're not, they're guides. But like Tony was saying, you happen to see something where the person is clearly teaching a lesson, and particularly teaching it wrong because they probably are not so clear on what they should be doing. See if you can get their name, bring it to us. We can bring it to Tony. Tony can bring it to the other department. We just want to make sure that we're following the right chains. So it'd be much better instead of like, hey, don't you teach. Stop that right now.
I think like us, there are times, because I know from first tracks and people that have done a lot of first tracks in here probably have taken people to the top of the mountain who are supposed to be able to ski blue runs, and then you find out they can't.
Yeah.
Right. So there may be some times where, for the safety of the guest, the guy has to step in and do something.
Of course, necessarily. Yeah. So it's another hook there for us to bring it in house. Right. You're saying, yeah, there's a bright future in it. It's really what I was getting at.
Yeah. Look positive. Absolutely. Cool. Does anybody have any other direct questions? Awesome. So I just wanted to take about 5 minutes real quick just to go over a couple of changes and address some of the frustrations that have been brought forward regarding the PLC and how we've been operating so far. The first is when I call the PLC, they don't always answer. That has been a big one this season. So I want to start off by saying guest services, much like every other department at the resort right now, is understaffed. They're trying really hard to fill these spots. But there's days where we only have 2 people in there answering phones. And if they're both on the phone, unfortunately, they cannot hang up on their guest and answer your call. Luckily, we do have answering machines. Those things function really well. You can always leave a message. We will get back to you. The other thing is, hopefully everybody has noticed we are using a new program called Zingle. which is texting basically. So we can reach out to you via text. You can also reach out to us via text. And all of that conversation is stored. We see the whole history. So any agent is able to go back and read a conversation. Yes, Trip, I see that face. Be careful what you send guest services.
You haven't sent
But
anything
basically, it's
yet.
another great communication tool. And so if you call and you're not able to get through, but you just want to give some information real quick, leave a message, send it. I mean, we've guys, take your time, understand we are very busy over there right now. So be patient. We will get back to you, absolutely. And so, especially with that single stuff, like if you don't like using it, let us know. You know, Sarah from admin sent out text to everybody, I think, saying if you don't want to receive these, opt out. That's totally fine. But if you are comfortable, it does seem to be a pretty good way to get in touch with us and for us to get in touch with you. Yes.
If you have to roll the applicant, per se, and we keep calling, nobody's answering. Single realistic?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely. So that was a great question. The question is, if I want to roll a morning private into a full day and I can't get a hold of anyone on the phone, can I single that in? The answer is absolutely. And we will give you a confirmation back that says we received your message. It is put in. You are all good to go. So yes, absolutely.
Or
For
we'll
most of these things,
like,
it's okay.
Hey, I don't have a card on file for that person. What number can I call you at? And we'll call you, so you don't have to spend your time just calling us.
Cool.
Yeah. Single is always great because we can text you back while we're still on the phone with somebody else. Because it's just on the computer.
Yeah, it's not on
handy.
any of our phones. It's all on the computer. We had a question from the computer.
I
Saw a hand go up.
I don't think so.
Oh, there's the hand.
Oh. Should I unmute him?
Yeah, I guess we'll go with that. Go ahead, Ken.
No.
Hang on. We're gonna.
I don't know.
So Ken, you're muted. You can either type in your question or you can unmute yourself really quick to ask us.
What's that text number? And can you put that in a newsletter?
Ken, it's whatever number the SRS admin folks texted you from.
If you didn't receive that text for whatever reason, please just send admin an email and they'll make sure to add your number in.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question was for single.
Yeah, so the program is called Zingle, and it's basically just texting through the computer, essentially.
It's whatever number you got on your phone.
Yeah, so you can save it
Yeah.
as Zingle in there. You can save it as PLC. You should save it as Ski School generally. But yeah, it's a great communication method. So one of the other things that was brought up is communication between the private lesson center and request private clients and how all of that works. So that has been a little bit of a challenge this season. I know. I think we have gotten to a much better place right now. Basically, the way it works is when it comes to booking lessons, we need either one of two things. We have to hear directly from the guest that they want to book you for a lesson. Just understand, coming third party, it's very hard for us to do that. And we can't technically book with somebody's credit card unless we hear it from them. If you have request guests who trust you absolutely and they want to make bookings through you, you're the only person that they trust. They don't want to talk to us. That's totally fine. All we need from them is one email. It has to be in writing. This is very important for us. One email that says, this instructor can use the credit card on file to make bookings in my name. Once we get that email, you can do whatever you want. That's totally fine. Just understand, until that happens, we cannot make a booking on your behalf.
Yeah.
Yes.
Liability.
Next question. My question is with regard to our certification levels, and if our certification level is beneficial to us, but not necessarily so much to some in privates or whatever, or having a higher priority, what is the benefit to advancing our certification?
Cool. Question is, what is the benefit of advancing certification? So it is going to give you that priority bump no matter what. It's going to bump up your pay as well. But if you don't particularly care about being high in priority and you don't particularly care about being called over to the private lesson center more often, it's really a question of, do you want to personally improve and strive to be better? If you don't want to get certifications, that is totally up to you. Just understand that you're becoming a little bit less versatile to us because you can't teach as many lessons as somebody who is more certified.
So it looks better in our employer's eyes if our certification is higher.
Absolutely. Because it means you have gone through the necessary steps to take out higher level lessons or even lower level lessons, but teach it at a higher level, if that makes sense. So kind of to Brian's point earlier, a more experienced certified instructor may be able to give a better first timer lesson because they've gone through the training, they know all the tips and tricks, they've had that experience. So yes, we absolutely value certification because it makes you a more well-rounded instructor able to put out a higher level of product.
On that same line with regard to just privates, do you guys feel that other than when an instructor actively sells a private lesson, that person should be certified before they private lessons at all?
So that's a really good question. Question is, should people be certified before they're in the private lesson center? And I think this calls back to what Tony was saying earlier, which is we have some amazing, outstanding first season employees who, without being certified just after training, are already putting out a very strong product. And so tying that in with those supervisor observations where we are out there trying to see who's doing really well, who needs a little bit of help, we are absolutely going to be pulling uncertified people over to the private lesson center. However, having a certification is absolutely going to increase your chances of being pulled over. It means that you are able to teach to a higher level. And also, even when we get like family privates, if I see something like 70-year-old, 40-year-old, 35-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old, believe me, I want to put someone who has like a CS2 on that, who knows what's going on, who can manage all the different splits that are going to come up in that level.
So with that being said, how does the liability change with an uncertified versus certified instructor regardless?
The liability does not change. You are teaching a lesson. So that's why it's really up to us on the management team to keep an eye on the instructors, make sure that we are doing things in a safe way, make sure we are not hurting our guests, we're not teaching them in ways that they will be likely to get hurt. So, I mean, that's also a big part of being on the instructor as well. Like, I don't care if you're a Cert 3 with 20 years of experience or a new hire who just got out of training. I don't think anybody wants to see their student get injured.
Well, of course not, but I guess I'm saying like the liability for the CYA for the resort. Is it like
No.
better that level 2 instructor took this person out or an uncertified
I
person?
think experience picking up more
Sure.
to do with it because you've been more trainings.
Right.
We go into a lawsuit.
Right.
They have this person trained
Yeah.
to do this. And what that training and
Mhm.
certification trainings are more about what you teach rather than if you do something silly, negligent, right?
So the liability would be more like, how long has this person
I
been
think
doing
it's gonna
this?
stop.
I mean,
Than what they're certified.
liability thing is like, if we're gonna get sued for negligence, it's gonna be if somebody takes someone into a closed trade.
Right.
Where they take someone on terrain that maybe they aren't ready.
It gave like a little blurb, like reporting what ended 5 minutes.
Chris and Kate actually trained where those classes should go. We can say, yeah, we did this was on this day.
There were no
About training things, man.